Hey everyone, Tracy Barkley here, Keto Comic, coming at you with a little vlog style video. Basically, a what is keto 101. I know I jumped into this channel on keto, already losing weight on keto, and never really explained what keto was. So I thought I would take a moment in this beautiful state park we're in, or actually national park we're in California, and tell you exactly what keto is. So stay tuned, here we go. Alright everybody, I decided to take a little walk around this track, and as you can see, it's quite lovely. That's the Winnebago. We're in Red Bluff, California, near Redding, just above the Central Valley. As I said, I'm on a string of comedy tours out west, and I apologize for being a little lazy about posting videos. Anyway, I thought I would just take a walk and tell you what keto is. Keto falls into a group of diets known as low-carb diets, and even further into another category called low-carb, high-fat. Now, not all low-carb diets are high-fat. A lot of them are more high-protein. That's where you get into things like South Beach and the Zone. Those are more high-protein, low-fat, low-carb. And I tried those like many people did in the 80s and 90s. It did not work for me. But keto falls into another category, low carb, high fat, which basically means the majority of your calories, at least 60% or so, should come from fat, while the rest will come from a split of moderate protein, and then lowest will be carbs. Hopefully 20% or less would be carbs. And that's where keto falls. And keto is a more clean way of eating the old Atkins diet, if you remember that. If you remember Atkins, you remember that on his induction phase, you kept your carbs at 20 net grams or less. That's essentially what strict keto is all the time. It's the Atkins induction plan. Whereas on Atkins, after the induction plan of a few weeks, you would switch and start adding in more carbs in the form of berries and even some whole grains until you eventually get up to your carb threshold where it doesn't really bother you. Mine was 100 grams or less. So when I did Atkins, I would get to my goal weight, and then I gradually added carbs back in until I got to 100 net carbs, and that worked for me. But when I was younger, now that I'm older, in my 40s, it really doesn't work for me all that much well. So what I thought, so to continue on, the old Atkins had kind of stopped working for me. I mean, I was still maintaining my weight, but the cravings were there, so I thought there's got to be a better way. So I started investigating some other low-carb, high-fat diets, and I found keto. And keto, in its essence, is low-carb, high-fat, very clean eating. It's very akin to the paleo diet, except the paleo does eat some ancient grains and fruits and things like that that keto completely eliminates. But I found it, and I started very strict clean keto, which basically means 65% or more of your daily caloric total comes from fat. And then carbs, very low, 20% or less. Protein's right in the middle, moderate. And it kind of works because it's kind of a natural balance with keto, because you're eating meats, you're eating nuts, you're eating high-fat vegetables and low-carb vegetables. So it all kind of balances out. You know, when you find fat naturally in nature, you normally find, naturally in nature, that's kind of redundant, but you know what I mean. When you find fat in nature, it's normally grouped with protein. So really it all naturally works out to high-fat, moderate protein, low-carb, as long as you're eating from the food groups. And the food groups are very simple. It's high-fat meats, nuts, low-carb vegetables. And if you can tolerate them, low-carb fruits like berries. But I wouldn't recommend jumping right in with those. I would kind of test yourself, do a few weeks on with just vegetables and fats and proteins, and see how you do before you add in something like berries that has some sugar to it. But that's basically what it is. It's a very clean way of eating. And that's how I lost the first 30 pounds of the 55 pounds or so that I've lost. Then I became more what we call dirty keto, which is still keeping the carbs fairly low. Mine is 40 to 50 net. But that way you can add in some things like berries. You can add in some convenience foods, which you've seen me review, which I'm just a junk food junkie. So that kind of helps keep me on track to be able to have some of those treats occasionally. And that's where you get into more lazy keto, where you add in things like processed chocolate, Quest chips, those kind of things. And you can do it that way too, as long as you don't go, as long as that threshold does not bother you. It still goes back to the old Atkins way of eating, that there's a carb threshold or a carb set point for everybody. And if you go over that, your cravings are triggered and things like that. So far, I'm okay at 40 to 50. Like I said, on the old Atkins diet, I could go up to 100. I don't want to risk that, so I'm not going to quite go that high. In fact, I think when you get above 50 net carbs, you're out of keto at that point, and you're more into just a low carb, high fat way of eating, just a traditional low carb diet. And there's not necessarily anything wrong with that. If that works for you, do it. But it's different for everybody. Some people can tolerate carbs. Some people lose weight on a vegan diet, which is very high carb. So it really just depends on what your set point is. But that's basically my understanding of what keto is. It's just a cleaner way of eating high fat, low carb. I don't do it as clean as I should, but it's still working for me. Like I said, I've lost about 55 pounds. I'm going to do a update for you guys when I hit 60 pounds. And doing real well. My goal is just to get under 200 pounds. Nothing major, nothing spectacular, just get under 200 pounds. Because girlfriend's been up there for a while. I was way over 300 at one point. Did not lose that on low carb, though. I lost that. I did go vegan for about 5 years, and it came off, but I was hungry most of the time. So I wouldn't advise that unless you've tested that before and it works for you. But I got most of it off and then switched back over to low carb to make the rest of it easier. But anyway, that's keto in a nutshell, my very simplistic take on keto. There's a lot of science and things like that go along with it that you can definitely just Google it. It's there. It's how I found it. It ain't rocket science. But it works for me. And all in all, I think most diets, whether it's low carb, keto, vegan, what have you, if it's a weight loss plan, it's all just a different way of lowering those calories. Really, calories do matter. There's a lot of people that say calories don't matter on keto. They're not telling you the truth. If you go over what your body uses in a day, you're going to store that fat. That's just the way it is, no matter what it is. Now, you can eat higher calorie better on keto because you're not filling up with junk, but if you go over those calories, you're going to gain weight. That's just, you're going to maintain or gain weight. That's just the way it is. And most diets are just another clever way of just old-fashioned limiting your calories. Because it really does come down to calories in, calories out. And you just got to remember that. There's no magic. There's no fancy to it. So anyway, whatever works for you, keep doing it. Eat healthy. And this is Tracy Barkley, Keto Comic. I will see you soon. Keto Comic out.